Ah yes, the 10-year anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's. I can't believe it's been a whole decade since this silly little bear game came out. I've been a huge fan of Five Nights at Freddy's ever since 2014 when I first saw Markiplier's video playing the game as a young lad. I have a lot of nostalgia for the series, but also a lot of love for it. That's why when it came to the 10-year anniversary, I was excited for what was going to unfold, especially since it turned out that we would be getting literally new content each day of the first week of August up until the 8th, the actual 10-year anniversary, in celebration of said anniversary. We all knew what was going to be released ahead of time, besides a few things which were kept as surprises. Along with the new content, we got behind the scenes images of the animatronics being worked on for the sequel to the FNAF movie, which were all really cool. There's a decent amount. It just goes to show how much work is put into the animatronics for the movie, and it's making me hyped for the second movie. A lot of fan content was also released on the 10-year anniversary, my favorite being a fan song coming from CG5, Black Griffin, and fucking MatPat just called Freddy, which was really good and special, and it's probably one of my newer favorite FNAF songs. However, I want to focus on the content that came out during the anniversary week and rank it. We're going to be ranking these differently to how we usually rank things. We're going to go through the events in the order from release, talk about them, and give thoughts, and then put them on a tier list. This is going to especially be on the personal opinion side for this one, so if you agree or disagree, that's completely fine. And yeah, without further ado, let's rank the FNAF 10-year anniversary, shall we? I personally didn't know myPOPGOES would be this fun and good. I thought it was at least going to be a decent or like a 7 out of 10 type of good, and that the people on FNAF Twitter who were hating on the full game before its release were just overreacting. Needless to say, those people were overreacting in my eyes, but by a lot. myPOPGOES is genuinely a really fun and enjoyable experience. I think the whole process of getting to 100% completion is like really interesting and engaging. Not only do you have campaign mode, but you have mini games with secrets of the toy animatronics hidden in them, which when found and beaten will help progress to 100%. I think the lore it provides to the POPGOES universe is really special and cool. I especially like the diary entries past the character written bios. It's neat reading Bonnie's thoughts on stuff like Morse, and then that creepy entry about her dead grandmother talking to her at a graveyard. That sent me chills. I also like the last entry with the Violet Project that also brings in Mary from Five Nights at Candy's, yet again proving these two fangame series are in the same universe as each other. The endings are also really cool, especially the one with the unwithered animatronics, which is considered the first true look of them in an official FNAF product. Yeah, it's not canon to FNAF, but it's still official as it's part of the fanverse. I also think the campaign mode has a fun gameplay loop, mostly on day 5. I think like the first 2 or 3 days in it can be a little boring if you know what you're doing. Now there's an argument to be made that the game is too hard for what it's meant to be, but it's about strategy and balancing the meters and the timing and everything. It's mostly a skill-based game, especially with endless mode and the challenges, which are fun inclusions. All in all, myPOPGOES was a surprisingly fun experience and was a really good way to kick off the anniversary week. A tier. This demo was straight up awesome. I'm a huge fan of the Joy of Creation story mode, and I've been excited for its remake ever since its initial announcement in 2020. And now that we finally get a glimpse of how much of an improvement this remake is going to be in the form of a demo, I'm hooked as fuck. This demo is a massive improvement over the original Office memory from story mode. First off, the cheesing methods found in the original are gone, which was a really good thing. Secondly, I think the addition of the power made this experience a much better one than the Office. I think the Office memory in the original is still one of the better parts of the game, but this remake demo takes the cake because I feel like there's actual resource management in this one. I really like this because it allows for much more intense moments with the gameplay that puts you on the edge of your seat, especially knowing how aggressive the ignited animatronics are. Speaking of, the ignited animatronics seem much more threatening in this game than the original, which is definitely a huge plus. I also like how the game progresses via flashing Freddy because it can result in either a longer or shorter experience. I think the environment looks much more terrifying and creepy, much more darker spots, and the igniteds look much more creepy in this too. All around, this demo did not disappoint, and I cannot wait for the full game. Easy S tier. VIP, the interactive novel. For an interactive novel, this was actually pretty good. Choose your own adventure stories are typically really good and interesting just because you create your own path or story for yourself. I think this novel has pretty good twists and turns throughout, and I also just really like very informative Pig as a character. He's just a cool addition to the franchise, and honestly, I'd like to see more of him. I also like the utilization of the Pizzaplex and developing more of the lore for it. All around, pretty solid experience. If I'm being honest, this is probably the one I have the least to say about out of the anniversary week, which doesn't hinder my opinion of it at all. In general, I'd put VIP at a solid B tier. Pretty decent. The Scott Cawthon interview 2.0 was actually a really interesting interview to listen to. Why? There was so much insight and so much said by Scott himself that was actually interesting and even had meaning to a lot of it. This had the chance to be disappointing, but no. Honestly, this was a nice little interview, just like the first. I love how Scott said that FNAF World might have a future ahead with a possible sequel, how there's more for the Mimic, which we know for 100% sure now, how the second FNAF movie is gonna have the same intro theme thing that the first one did, how Scott wants to make a fetch game in the same essence as the Into the Pit game, how a Phasma Frights TV show in the same vein as Goosebumps is possible in the future, and of course more clues to the truth of what's inside the FNAF 4 box. As well, there was a certain part that Scott explained to Daco in the interview that spoke to me and a lot of people, which was how the development of Security Breach was like. Scott actually taking full responsibility for how the story and base game Security Breach turned out was actually pretty admirable in my opinion. The details on that was interesting too, especially with how Burn Trap was supposed to be in the game. Man, I wish we had Burn Trap's original idea in the game because that would probably be given more horror to Security Breach in like a creepy, eerie way. There was potential. Oh well. The questions asked by Daco were reasonable and Scott's answers suffice, and all around, it was a great interview. Might even be better than the first one, don't know. I'm gonna put this in A tier right in front of myPOPGOES. This is something I'm really excited for. Recently off camera, like at the beginning of the summer, so a whopping 2 months before this reveal, I actually started playing and getting into Dead by Daylight. It's a really fun game, and it's a game I regularly play and gets tons of enjoyment from, especially with friends. On August 5th, when it was revealed that this game was what FNAF was doing their collaboration with, my levels of hype skyrocketed. Up until its announcement, people were speculating which game it would be. There were 3 main contenders. One was Stumble Guys, which is this Fall Guys ripoff and was the option people wanted the least. Another was Fortnite, which was an option I personally would have been okay with and would have been just as exciting for me. And the third main possible option was, well, Dead by Daylight. In retrospect, this choice makes the most sense as FNAF is still a horror property and that part of the series needs some serious love after recent years. Fortnite would have been really cool, but this is cooler, and it's not hard to see why. I feel like the killer is most likely gonna either be Springtrap or the Yellow Rabbit from, you know, the movie, and maybe the survivor is gonna be Josh Hutcherson's Mike Schmidt. I'm inclined to believe the movie options for killer and survivor is Blumhouse replies to the announcement tweet. We just gotta wait and see. In terms of where it goes on the tier list, easy S tier, right behind the Joy Creation demo. When it was said that Steelwool would be announcing something, a lot of people thought it would just be a DLC to Help 1 and 2. And if it was that, I still would have been fine with that because Help 1 and 2 is personally one of my favorite FNAF games of all time. However, there were some people that thought they were going to announce a whole new game, and those people were right. What people didn't expect though was a whole ass game based off of the Mimic being announced. This got many people, even me, excited because personally, I really like the Mimic. He's a really interesting and unique character and antagonist for the FNAF series, and he has so much potential. However, one critique I will give to the Mimic is that I feel like his true evil and his true character was shown way more in the books than in the games like Ruin, for example. Why is this a critique I have? Well, as you most likely already know, not every FNAF fan reads the books. There's actually quite a hate base for them, which I'll never fully understand, as yes, some of the stories in the books can be weird or straight up bad. There's a lot of gems in these books, and honestly the Mimic's story from the books is one of those gems. One of the better gems too. But since not every fan reads the supplementary material and chooses to only follow the games, not a lot of people know who the Mimic truly is as a character, and they're quick to write him off. That's why you see a decent amount of Mimic hate outside of FNAF Twitter. Now, a few or some of those people may have read the Mimic's story and know basically everything about his character from it, but may personally still not be a fan of him, which is fine. However, I think the Mimic would have way more fans if his character and his true story was given more spotlight in the games, and that's why I think the Secret of the Mimic game is the perfect idea, and honestly was the best choice to center the next FNAF game around. If the ideas and concepts are all executed really well, the Mimic will most likely get more love from the general fan base, and that'll be a huge win. That's the main reason I'm excited for this game, and why the teaser / announcement for it stirred the pot for my excitement. There's also just fun lore hints sprinkled in too, like the 1979 part of it. Overall, really hyped. I'd say this goes at a high A tier, right in front of the Scott Interview 2.0. Oh boy, so the 5 laps of Freddy's demo. I do not think it was straight up bad. For its worth, I did have some enjoyment playing it, but that's probably because I love playing racer games sometimes. However, there was a lot to be desired with this demo. First off, the random crashes, which wasn't even a me exclusive problem, it seemed to be a problem for other people. Secondly, some of the models, especially Bonnie, look really off and not in a good way. I think it's some of the shapes and proportions with the models. I think that's something that could hopefully be improved on in the final game to get more polish. Thirdly, there's just not enough uniqueness to this demo to make it stand out. It literally seems like an ordinary racing game, but with FNAF attached. Why not just play Mario Kart, you know? I think something that could be improved on is to add more FNAF-like elements to it. I think the additions of jump scares actually works in this favor. Fourthly, I think the environments in the map could be more well realized and thought out. I like the sinkhole map because it ties to the Pizzaplex and adds neat details from that, but there still could have been a bit more of that, I feel like. All in all, this demo is flawed and there are improvements that need to be made, but I don't think it sucked as a whole because again, I enjoyed it a bit. Trying to win first place was a little tense, and even if there were some boring moments because I was way ahead of everyone. And Click Team has acknowledged the criticisms that people had for this game, so it does have a hopeful future up ahead. In terms of the Anniversary Week content, this is the worst and weakest in my opinion and belongs at C tier. Out of the Anniversary Week, this final release was the release I was looking forward to the most because of the fact it was a full-fledged FNAF game, and look at that, it's my favorite thing to come from the Anniversary. Into the Pit is an amazing game. The gameplay for a side-scroller horror is extremely fun and has really good gameplay bits sprinkled in throughout. It's got good stealth. The animatronics, especially Spring Bonnie, feel like actual threats. The story that's going on is interesting. The characters are really engaging, especially Oswald, our protagonist. Everything is well written. It adapts the original Fazbear Fright story really well. There's fun secrets to be found in this game, like the secret minigames that are based off of other Fazbear Fright stories like Fetch, Count the Ways, and To Be Beautiful. The arcade machines are fun to play. Also, speaking of, Beth Helpy is actually integrated into the game in a way that actually makes sense in universe and doesn't take away from the experience. Huge respect for that because it's hard to do that nowadays in a lot of media, especially games. Fan service for memes and shit. The fact there's multiple endings with multiple difficulties. All in all, I gotta be 100% honest. Into the Pit is one of the best FNAF games in the series. It's that fucking good. I enjoyed it so much and a lot of people did. All around, easy S tier that goes to the very front and top, and it's by far the best thing to come out of FNAF's 10th anniversary. In conclusion, most of the releases and events that took place in the 10-year anniversary week of FNAF were really exciting and really good. I cannot wait for things like the full game of The Joy Creation, the FNAF Collab in Dead by Daylight, and Secret of the Mimic. Even weak ones like the demo to 5 Laps at Freddy's have potential in the future to be something really good and unique, which I'm all here for. Happy 10 years to Five Nights at Freddy's, and here's to another 10 years to come. We all spent not just 5 Nights at Freddy's, we spent a decade at Freddy's.